to the Variety Hour, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. I swear I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah, talk Memphis.
This is the Memphis Real Estate Hour with your host, Dean Harris, on KWAM. And now, here's your host, Dean Harris.
All right, welcome to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. I want to thank you guys for listening this morning. If you're tuning in on AM 990 Memphis, we welcome you. And also, we're on FM 107.9, so we're excited to add an FM dial to our station here. So thank you for joining us there on those stations. And then we're on Facebook Live this morning, so if you guys have tuned in to the Memphis Real Estate Hour Facebook page, you can find us on Facebook Live. The Memphis Real Estate Hour will concentrate on investing in Memphis. We'll also talk about our residential real estate market as well. We've got an ever-changing residential market, so we'll cover both ends of those topics. I remind you every single show, guys, that I am an investor. If you have that old home that you need to sell quickly, or if you have someone in your family, friends, whoever it may be, that need to get rid of that home, give me a call today, 901-619-6170, and I can get you a cash offer on that home probably before the end of the day. Again, I mentioned we're on Facebook Live. It's something we've started a few weeks ago, and we've had some tremendous response from it, so I'm excited to add that feature to the show. Last week on the show, we had Dan Butler and Hunter Huey on the show.
To the Variety Hour, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. I swear I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah, talk Memphis.
This is the Memphis Real Estate Hour with your host, Dean Harris, on KWAM. And now, here's your host, Dean Harris.
All right, welcome to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. I want to thank you guys for listening this morning. If you're tuning in on AM 990 Memphis, we welcome you. And also, we're on FM 107.9, so we're excited to add an FM dial to our station here. So thank you for joining us there on those stations. And then we're on Facebook Live this morning, so if you guys have tuned in to the Memphis Real Estate Hour Facebook page, you can find us on Facebook Live. The Memphis Real Estate Hour will concentrate on investing in Memphis. We'll also talk about our residential real estate market as well. We've got an ever-changing residential market, so we'll cover both ends of those topics. I remind you every single show, guys, that I am an investor. If you have that old home that you need to sell quickly, or if you have someone in your family, friends, whoever it may be, that need to get rid of that home, give me a call today, 901-619-6170, and I can get you a cash offer on that home probably before the end of the day. Again, I mentioned we're on Facebook Live. It's something we've started a few weeks ago, and we've had some tremendous response from it, so I'm excited to add that feature to the show. Last week on the show, we had Dan Butler and Hunter Huey on the show talking about the different investment real estate markets. Hunter manages a few hundred properties over in Greenville, South Carolina, and of course Dan is with CrestCore Realty, and we manage, upwards of 3,000 there. So we discussed the different markets and what you can get for the dollar.
To the Variety Hour, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. I swear I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah, talk Memphis.
This is the Memphis Real Estate Hour with your host, Dean Harris, on KWAM. And now, here's your host, Dean Harris.
All right, welcome to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. I want to thank you guys for listening this morning. If you're tuning in on AM 990 Memphis, we welcome you. And also, we're on FM 107.9, so we're excited to add an FM dial to our station here. So thank you for joining us there on those stations. And then we're on Facebook Live this morning, so if you guys have tuned in to the Memphis Real Estate Hour Facebook page, you can find us on Facebook Live. The Memphis Real Estate Hour will concentrate on investing in Memphis. We'll also talk about our residential real estate market as well. We've got an ever-changing residential market, so we'll cover both ends of those topics. I remind you every single show, guys, that I am an investor. If you have that old home that you need to sell quickly, or if you have someone in your family, friends, whoever it may be, that need to get rid of that home, give me a call today, 901-619-6170, and I can get you a cash offer on that home probably before the end of the day. Again, I mentioned we're on Facebook Live. It's something we've started a few weeks ago, and we've had some tremendous response from it, so I'm excited to add that feature to the show. Last week on the show, we had Dan Butler and Hunter Huey on the show talking about the different investment real estate markets. Hunter manages a few hundred properties over in Greenville, South Carolina, and, of course, Dan is with CrestCore Realty, and we manage, upwards of 3,000 there. So we discussed the different markets and what you can get for the dollar bang for your buck in those two, and you can just kind of see some of the differences, some of the good things that are happening here in Memphis. So we were excited to have those guys on. Today I'm going to have the investment of the week. We've got two good properties over in 38111 that I'm going to give you guys. And, of course, I'm going to have the listing of the week. Our guest today is David Lenoir. He's a Shelby County trustee, so we are extremely honored and excited to have him in. We're going to talk about tax sales, land bank sales, and then the real estate roadshow that the Shelby County Trustee's Office does. So we're excited to have him on. We're going to dive right into that in just a minute. First, I'm going to give you the listing of the week. This is a great property. It's been completely renovated. It's 8979 Dewberry Lane out in Cordova. It's got 5 bedrooms and 3 full baths. The list price is $219,900. So, guys, check this property out. If you have any questions with it, it's one of my listings, so you can call me at 901-619-6170. I can set up a private showing for you. But this is a great house, completely renovated. We have got, let me see where my listings of the week are. Or, I'm sorry, my investments of the week. Douglas, 3077 Douglas Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. It's 38111. 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. It's occupied at $500, and you can have this for the low price of $24,900. It's a pretty good bang for your buck. You can instantly start seeing a return on your cash investment. And the second one, guys,
www.gcemlaw.com or on Facebook.
Now here's the Mid-South weather from the News Channel 3 Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by Gossett Kia on Covington Pike. Family owned and operated.
No major changes in the Mid-South weather pattern. Continued partly sunny, hot and humid. Highs nearing 90, heat index values nearing 95. Light southerly winds and stray afternoon and evening showers to be expected. Mid-70s overnight, back to near 90 tomorrow. Don't wait until the heat becomes overwhelming. Have an Air and Heat Service check your home's cooling system. Call 662-838-8088. 662-838-8088. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers. Now back to The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Now you can listen and watch too. Go to our website to listen online and see our studio cam, kwamthevoice.com.
Darling, don't you go and cut your hair. Do you think it's gonna make...
All right, welcome back to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I'm your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. You guys got a brand new building over there. Don't hesitate to stop in, drop by, and say hello to us. I'm excited and honored to have Shelby County Trustee David Lenoir on the show with us today. David, thank you for joining us.
Dean, good morning. Glad to be here.
Yes,
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We one of the big topics on our show is, and it has been in the last few weeks, has been tax sales, the buying process of this, and I want to dive right into that. But the first thing I've got to find out, and I got to ask for my listeners, is what What is the trustee's office? What is our Shelby County trustee, for those who don't know?
Yeah, Dean, our role, the role of the trustee's office is generally defined as the tax collector. But when I was elected 7 years ago, who wants to be known as the tax collector, right?
That's right.
And really the role of the office is much broader than that. It's really the banker for the county. So whether it's holding assets on behalf of the county like a custodian would, or investing assets on behalf of the county. Most people don't realize we manage a portfolio of about $800 million on behalf of taxpayers so that the county can pay its bills and fund its obligations. So when I came in 7 years ago, if you dial back in terms of where the real estate economy was, I really knew we had to do a couple of things. One, focus on running efficient operations. We had to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. Two, we had to collect all the money that we could because when I first came in, we actually had a funding deficit. We had just had a reappraisal back in 2009. I came in 10 with Mayor Luttrell. We had a lot of debt on the books, and our cash flow was down because real estate had collapsed and was still down. And that's really where we began to focus on these delinquent properties. So what a tax sale is where we've made an attempt to collect delinquent taxes. I'd love to tell you that everybody that we send a bill to pays on time. And for the most part, from a dollar perspective, 95 to 96% of the money does come in on time. But that 4 to 5% that goes unpaid equates to somewhere around $35 to $40 million. So it's significant money. And again, recognizing back in 2010, we need to sweep the corners of the floors to find every nickel and penny that we could. We began to do these tax sales. We do 4 a year, where we sell properties that are chronically delinquent. I think that's important for your audience to understand. If somebody's 1 or 2 years behind on their property taxes, that property's not going to be sold at a tax sale. What we define internally as a tax sale eligible property is a property that owes 3 or more years of back taxes.
Okay.
So it's a legal process. We do it in cooperation with Chancery Court, where we file a lawsuit. We take a judgment against the property, which is all in preparation for selling the property at the tax sale. What I found when I was on the campaign trail back in 2010 was most of the community was not aware that the county did tax sales. And that's where we came up with this idea of the real estate roadshows, right, where we go out in the community and we talk about the real estate roadshows and the workshops designed to help people understand how the process works.
Right. All right. So you to back up a little bit, when we talked about what is a tax sale, you said there are a few years delinquent, have to be 3 years delinquent.
Right.
Is there any other circumstances that arise with that? Is there anything else that could have, other than delinquent taxes that could I guess propose a tax sale?
You mean, are there other criteria that would put a property in tax sale? Yeah, I've worked closely with the city of Memphis and Mayor Strickland's administration to try to address blight. We just wrapped up our second annual Blight Elimination Summit. I was at a meeting yesterday over in the Hickory Hill community where we were talking about high grass, weeds, cars parked in the front yard. Just those eyesores that take away from property value. So if a property at one of those grassroots organizations has been determined to be a problem property, then yes, we can include that property in a tax sale.
They're generally delinquent anyway, right? These are the people that aren't paying attention or aren't caring about the property to begin with.
They are, and again, we've tried to coordinate between our office, Judge Potter over in environmental court, the DA's office, code enforcement, because what we found is, yes, many times they are delinquent. And if they're delinquent, I tell everybody that that property clearly falls into my lane. We can begin to go after that property owner due to those delinquent taxes and put that property in a tax sale. But I caution your audience, because if that property owner, for whatever reason, comes in and pays those back taxes but doesn't cut the grass, it's no longer in my lane, if you will, because the taxes are paid, and that's where I have to steer the property to Judge Potter from an environmental court perspective. So, yeah, there are other ways. we looked years ago in terms of what are the metrics or the indicators for blight. And I've gone after blight aggressively from an economic perspective because it does a number of things. But one, it communicates to the surrounding neighborhood that the property owner doesn't care about the property. Number two, economically, it is a drag on the surrounding property values.
Sure.
And we're in a reappraisal year. Maybe we can talk about this later. But when we look at where local property revenue comes from, it is a function of two numbers. One is the value of your property, which is determined by the assessor's office, multiplied times the tax rate, which is being pounded out right now with your county commission. There's an article in the paper yesterday about that. My job is to collect the product of those two numbers. The value of your property times the tax rate is the revenue that's generated in which we collect to fund, the initiatives of Shelby County and primarily education. So going back to blight, if you have a blighted property that takes away from the value of the property, then obviously there's lost revenue potential that's there for the surrounding property value. So we've gone after blight aggressively, again in cooperation with Mayor Strickland's office, so that we can improve the property values.
I get a lot of investors that come to me and say, Dean, I found this house, 123 Main Street.
Right.
It's grass is 4 foot high. It's boarded
Right.
up. What can I do to buy it? Are we doing anything other than tax sales to push these properties out there to avoid the blight? I get a lot of that. A whole lot. And I'm not going to name zip codes, but there's some zip codes where it's much higher than in other zip codes. Are we doing anything as a city to try, other than just tax sales, to try to eliminate some of that blight?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a couple of things. One is we formed about 2 years ago what we call the Blight Elimination Steering Team. And it's a combination of city, county, attorneys, the University of Memphis Law School. Well, we're not only trying to look at sort of practical, real-time things that we can do today in terms of coordination. If it's behind on taxes, my office can deal with it. If it's not behind on taxes, then what can Judge Potter do with it? If it's outside of Judge Potter, what can General Wyrick can do from a nuisance standpoint? So one, just today, collaboration, but also out of that blight elimination steering team, we're also looking at policy issues. Our redemption period in our tax sales, if somebody were to lose their property at a tax sale, the prior owner had, up until a couple of years ago, had a 1-year right of redemption. So think about this, Dean. I mean, the property owner hasn't paid their taxes for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
They lose it at a tax sale, and then the law gave them another year by which they could redeem the property. Well, if you bought that property or one of your clients bought that property at a tax sale, then they were kind of in the gray area. Do they own it? Do they not own it? Should they fix it up because of this redemption period? So from a policy perspective, we decided to go to Nashville and reduce the redemption period. The longer the taxes were owed, 5, 6, 7 years, the shorter the redemption period.
Makes sense.
So back to your question in terms of what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at things that we can tackle here and now in terms of coordination, but we're also trying to look at policy issues. And I know we're going to talk more about the real estate roadshows later, but the two initiatives behind the two ideas behind the real estate roadshow were, one, to raise awareness and let the community know that we do tax sales. Number two was to solicit feedback. What's working, what's not working. I spent 20 years in the private sector. And I believe to address blight, I mean, it's going to require the private sector, the marketplace. And what we realized through our real estate roadshows were there were certain hurdles, like the 1-year redemption period, that we decided to go to Nashville and change, listening to the marketplace at our real estate roadshows.
We're going to get into the real estate roadshow. I'm excited to tell the listeners about that, because a lot of times people say, "What's a tax sale?" And then I explain it to them, and then the very next question is, well, how do we do that? How do we go with that? So we're going to hit that after our break. But what is, when we have a tax sale, you explained a little bit about what it is. What is the buying process? I know you explained part of it there. You purchased the home, $10,000, let's say.
Right.
They're behind on their taxes. you just work to reduce that time to when the prior owner can come back. What are some of the other processes that we have to buy a tax sale property?
Sure. Well, I mean, a couple of things. One, you mentioned the grassroots a minute ago where somebody finds a property at 123 Main. I always encourage that potential property investor just to contact the prior owner. I mean, one of our bigger challenges that we have is what we call heir properties, where the original owner's deceased, they left the property to heirs. The heirs sometimes get along, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they all live here, sometimes they don't.
Right.
A lot of times I just encourage that investor, contact the prior owner directly. And, if you've noticed that they're behind on their taxes, just, contact it and do a private transaction, and everybody wins, in my opinion. However, if that property does end up in a tax sale, and again, just to give you a scope, of these tax sale eligible properties, we have about 18,000 parcels. So when we bill and attempt to collect on about 350,000 parcels, if you think about it, that's about 5 or 6% of the total parcel count. So we have 18,000 eligible properties. So we always love when it's bottom up. When an investor comes to us and says, hey, if you put this property in a tax sale, I would be an interested buyer, because we'll talk about the outcomes of the tax sale and some of the things that we did to try to change that. But historically, when we put properties in the tax sale, let's say we would put 500 properties in a tax sale. In the past, again, a couple of years ago, I would say 90 to 95% of those properties would end up being owned by the county. So we put it up for auction, 500 properties. 450 of those would end up being owned by the county. So we would only sell about 50 properties to investors. And a lot of it had to do with these hurdles like the redemption period and some of the things that we changed. And I apologize to you and your audience. My degree was in accounting, and so sometimes I speak in accounting speak. But if you think about it, in accounting terms, what we've just done is taken a potentially income-producing asset, because if that property's on the tax rolls and that property owner's paying taxes, which, I mean, of course they're not, because that's why it's in the tax sale. We've just flipped that property into a liability, because now when the county owns it, we now are the property owner, and when the grass begins to grow, as it does in the spring and summer, we now have to send out a cutting crew. And so if you think about it from a taxpayer perspective, we've just taken potential income producing off the rolls and turned it into an expense. And that's why we've looked hard at the tax sales in terms of how we can get more property into the hands of responsible property owners.
What is your average? You just gave me some numbers there, 500, let's say 50. Is that about your average sale? If you put however many you put up, you sell 10% of them. Is that about right?
It was, Dean, until a couple of years ago. I mean, not this legislative session, but the legislative session just prior, we changed the redemption period. And again, listening to the marketplace of trying to truncate or reduce the redemption period to make the properties more appealing to investors. Number two, last year we rolled out our tax sales online. In the past, a property investor would come downtown, find a place to park, sit in an auction, old-style auction, all day and wait for their property. And so if we had 500 and you were interested in 5 of them,
you would sit,
day. Yeah, you would sit there the entire day waiting for your 5 properties to come up for auction. So about a year ago, we went to an online auction. And again, we talk about this in our real estate roadshows, where we walk the potential investor through how to register, how to bid, how to create a watch list. It's eBay style, so that you can sort through, export all the data, crunch it, analyze it however you want to analyze it, and then create a watch list, set your maximum bid amount, and then in some ways really just walk away from the computer, say I'm willing to pay $20,000 for this property, and I'm going to start my bid at the minimum bid, and then it will incrementally, if you're outbid, automatically increase your bid until you reach that high water, your personal high water mark, that $20,000. So back to those numbers, when we implemented all that, our numbers changed, where we now sell to investors about 30% of the property. So where we used to only sell about 5 to 10, we see it starting to inch up where there's a broader investor base that is being reached. And quite honestly, the prices are better because of the market competition.
Is that a public website? Or is that a Shelby County auction website, or do you, like, I've heard of some other websites that have auctions, auction.com?
Yeah, we actually went through the bid process. We selected a vendor, Civic Source, CIVIC Source, SOURCE, as the provider for that. So your audience can either go to Civic Source directly or find the link through the Shelby County Trustee's office or website, which is shelbycountytrustee.com. I'm
impressed with those numbers. I always like to hear things that work, things that are successful. With the 10%, 5 to 10% number, all of a sudden we go online.
Especially in government. I'd like to hear that they work in government.
I was about to say, I wanted to ask you if it's your idea, but I want to put you on the spot.
I work with some great people that really think outside the box.
I'll tell you what, that's when you implement things that you can show work, like literally numbers, not, hey, I'm just talking here and I'm making this better because I'm speaking a better game. When you have proof in the pudding to show it, it's always something that benefits not only you as a public official, but us as investors, taxpayers.
Sure.
So that's exciting to see that we can get online. Civic Source, you can search it through the Shelby County Trustees website as well. We've gone through what is a tax sale, kind of what is our buying process. We just covered that some. Is there any limitations? I mean, other than I know you've shrunk down the time frame that the prior owner can come back. Right. Any other benefits limitations that people bring up that are the most popular ones in buying a tax sale home?
Well, let me go back and talk a little more about the buying process. So I talked about the 18,000 eligible properties. We prefer a bottom-up approach, but that doesn't always occur. So we'll select about 500 properties for each tax sale. Out of those 500 properties, there's really no rhyme or reason to some degree. We don't want to be accused of sort of cherry picking. No, we pick properties in this particular neighborhood versus that neighborhood. So we try to throw a broad net in terms of geographic representation of properties in the tax sale. Once those properties in a tax sale, again, we populate the Civic Source database about 90 days before the tax sale. Mm-hmm. At that point in time, your audience, again, can go on, look, analyze, evaluate those properties that meet their particular criteria. And then we usually do a real estate roadshow about a week to 10 days before the tax sale to try to answer any last-minute questions in terms of how the tax sale works. But then your audience can go on and register with Civic Source. I've registered, however, I have not linked my registration to a bank account because I can't bid on properties, but I can monitor and watch and see what's going on. So if somebody just wants to dip their toe in it, they can register through the Civic Source website, not link their registration to a bank account, and just watch to see how the process works. Those that want to bid on the properties obviously would have to link their registration to a bank account so that when they begin to bid and hopefully buy properties, the funding and when the payment of those properties will be there. With the online tax sales, we require good funds usually within 48 hours. And then too, we've tried to stagger the tax sales. Because if you think about it, in my scenario, if you've decided to invest in 5 properties and we put all those 5 properties up for auction at one particular point in time, you won't know until the end of the auction, did you win or lose on those 5 properties? So again, this was feedback from our real estate roadshows. We've decided to break those properties into different batches. So one batch may begin on Tuesday and close on Wednesday night. One may begin on Wednesday and close on Thursday night, and one may begin on Thursday and close on Friday night. Again, trying to give our investors all the resources they can, that if they won properties in a particular tax sale, they'll have the capital to go invest in other properties. So that's really how I keep going back to the real estate roadshows, and they're so important for us because it is the feedback that we get from the marketplace in terms of what's working and what's not working.
I think the real estate roadshow is a great idea. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna take a real quick break. I have got David Lenoir, Shelby County Trustee, in the studio this morning. We're talking tax sales, land bank, and we're going to get into the real estate roadshow. That's an extremely valuable tool that I know my investors are going to want to hear. You guys stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to the Memphis Real Estate Hour on AM 990 Memphis.
She hides the television. Said I don't know him nothing but it. Oh, he come back again. Tell him, wait right here for me. Oh.
The voice for the Mid-South, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
Investors or buyers, if you're looking for the best customer service and most competitive rates on a home loan, come to Brighton Bank. They offer a quick approval process, fast closing, and they even finance 85% of purchase price in most cases. At Brighton Bank, they work with every kind of loan: VA, FHA, USDA programs, traditional conventional financing programs, long-term fixed financial, and bridge loans made easy. When it comes to home loans, they mean business. Call them today, 901-758-1740. That's Brighton Bank at 901-758-1740.
All right, guys, I'm here in the studio with Brad Sterling. Brad's been a part of the Memphis Real Estate Hour, but now we're with a new warranty company, Choice Home Warranty. Brad, tell me about it.
Yeah, Dean, Choice has been an industry leader in direct-to-consumer warranty sales. Now they've opened up a brand-new real estate portal. Pricing begins at $420 and goes up to $550 with a low $65 trade call fee. We also have fabulous multi-year pricing, meaning you can get a 5-year warranty for the cost of 4. Call me at 901-870-2334 for more information.
Thank you, Brad. Choice Home Warranty, we're happy to have them part of the Memphis Real Estate Hour.
Is it a good time to buy or refi? Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? Are interest rates going sky high soon? Hi, I'm Ludi Calloway, the mortgage lady at iBank Mortgage. I tell my customers to ask questions, get answers. So join me every Monday morning at 8, and I will tell you what's going on in today's still changing mortgage world. Remember, most people think about mortgages a few times in their lives. I think about them every single day. Tune in Mondays at 8.
Now here's the Mid-South weather from the News Channel 3 Severe Weather Center. Brought to you by Gossa Kia on Covington Pike. Family owned and operated.
No major changes in the Mid-South weather pattern. Continued partly sunny, hot and humid. Highs nearing 90, heat index values nearing 95. Light southerly winds and stray afternoon and evening showers to be expected. Mid-70s overnight, back to near 90 tomorrow. Don't wait until the heat becomes overwhelming. Have an air and heat service check your home's cooling system. Call 662-838-8088. 662-838-8088. I'm News Channel 3's Todd Demers. Now back to The Voice, FM 107.9 and AM 990.
KWAM. Streaming live at kwamthevoice.com.
All right, welcome back to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I'm your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty. I've got David Lenoir, Shelby County Trustee, here in the office, here in the studio with us this morning. We're talking all this tax sales and all this things that makes me think we're sitting here in the office. But no, we're giving out some good information today, guys, on what are tax sales, what's the buying process of these tax sales. We've gone over some benefits and limitations of it, and one of the questions that just during the break that I had were, David, as you're talking about these sales, and I'll just repeat my question, are we selling enough? Are we selling as many tax sale homes as there are coming into the bucket, so to speak? Is that balancing out, or are we working to get rid of these?
Not yet, Dean. I mean, it's the gap is closing. As I mentioned to you, we have about 18,000. If you think about it in terms of a funnel, we have about 18,000 in the funnel. Some are at the top of the funnel, meaning they've only owe maybe 2 or 3 years of back taxes, and some are closer to the bottom of the funnel, meaning they may owe 6 or 7 years of back taxes. But if you think about it, I mean, the unfortunate reality is that there's two guarantees in life: death and taxes. So each year when we send out the tax notices, there'll be, a new crop, if you will, that'll go back into the top of the funnel. So if we're selling on the bottom end of the funnel 2,000 properties a year in our tax sales, then there's still more properties coming in at the top of the funnel. And so we're not. I mean, that's why, shows like this, and again, I guess thank you to you and what you do and your audience does in terms of making an investment here in Memphis and Shelby County. That's, again, why we did our real estate roadshows, to try to get broader awareness that we do sell properties. Memphis in this area has always been known as a very affordable place to live when you look at it on a national basis. But then if you can even find properties that are even more affordable within that affordability range, some of those properties you talked about earlier, that's unbelievable that somebody can buy an occupied property that's paying $500 a month in rent for $25,000 a year. I didn't bring my HP 12C, my calculator to calculate the ROI, but
it's about 15.
As long as you've got a good tenant, I'd imagine that's a pretty good ROI on your investment. So, that's why we did the real estate roadshows. To your question, the gap is closing. I mean, our staff has done a great job of reducing the outstanding delinquent tax that are out there. It was about $60 million when I came into office. It's down in the 40s now. So we've reduced the outstanding receivable, again, in accounting talk, by about $20 million, which is important. But what we've gotten down to, quite honestly, is some of these historically chronic delinquent properties that, are really going to take the right investor through our real estate roadshows and through our tax sales to invest in those properties. And so one of the things that we tried to do, Dean, was to coordinate with the land bank. As we went through the real estate recession, there were certain areas of our county that got hit harder. I mean, everybody got hit. But, if you think about the Fraser community or even Hickory Hill or some parts of the urban core, they got really hit hard in real estate. So we went to our land bank and said, you know what? You already own a portfolio of properties. About 5,000 are in the land bank, okay? Well, if we know that one of these properties is tax sale eligible and it's next door to a property that the county already owns, why don't we sell the property that's next door to the one that the county already owns? Trying to encourage the marketplace, again, because this was feedback we heard, was when somebody goes into rehab or renovate a property, they'd much rather have their equipment and materials on site at one location as opposed to scattered at 3 different locations.
Right.
So we began to coordinate with the land bank and said, you know what, if you own property A, then let's sell B and C that are adjacent or adjoining to property A. And that's some of the coordination that we've done. Again, trying to do whatever we can, to make properties appealing to the marketplace.
We have talked about in the past. I've had Wendy Greenlaw from Chandler Reports on the show. She's been a vital addition with her knowledge and information. I'm going to roll this right into the real estate roadshow, but some interesting figures that she gave me. 2016 and 17. 24 to 25% of our real estate transactions were to investors.
Right.
41% of that quarter, that 24 to 25%, were national or out-of-town investors. Could be international.
Right.
Your real estate roadshow promotes the tax sales, the land bank sales. It gets the information out there. These numbers prove that it isn't just us that's telling you this is a good place to invest in. The nation is telling us that it's a great place to invest in.
Clearly.
How does the Real Estate Roadshow tie all that into explaining the process? What is the purpose of that? Let's just take these last 10, 15 minutes we've got. I want to make sure that everybody understands what the Real Estate Roadshow is.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wendy Greenlaw and the folks at Chandler are great partners with our Real Estate Roadshows. When we took this idea to them, they said, yes, David, we'll do whatever we can to help you promote this, even to the point of helping us secure venues and locations for our Real Estate Roadshow, and providing the snacks, sort of the cookies and iced tea and lemonade for the roadshow. So Wendy and folks at Chandler do a great job. As far as because I do get this question from time to time, it's that villain mentality of those out-of-town investors. They come in, they don't care about our neighborhoods, they just invest. And in part, I get that. But as I've shared with you, I've shared with others when I get that question, my role as the trustee is to collect taxes and to bring in the revenue, because half of the revenue that the property tax that we collect goes to education, and everybody agrees that education is important for our community, a good education. So one, it's just to collect the revenue. There are good property owners that live here in Memphis and Shelby County, and there are bad property owners that live here in Memphis. So in terms of whether it's an in-town or out-of-town, obviously at the end of the day, what we all want is a responsible property owner, a property owner that's going to maintain and take care of the property. And if it's a rental property, rent it to someone that they themselves would want as a neighbor. And that's the ultimate goal. Does it always happen that way? No. Right. But it doesn't always happen that way with an in-town property manager or an out-of-town property manager. So, to your point about the Real Estate Roadshow, one of the things that we've looked at, because I actually had a lady at our last roadshow, she drove in from Nashville. She said, David, the property values in Nashville, it's really priced itself out of the market.
Yep.
And Memphis down here, she had some family and some prior connections down here in Memphis. She said, look, I just drove down because I'm looking to invest in the Memphis market. Because while the Memphis property values have improved based on this last reappraisal, we've seen that, and that's a good thing because that's an asset on your balance sheet or your client's balance sheet, right?
That's right.
So she decided she wanted to invest in the Memphis market because of the affordability. So one of the things that we've looked at with our roadshows is actually taking it online. I mean, I love what you're doing here with the Facebook Live. Again, to broaden the audience, folks that just can't drive in, for a Thursday night real estate roadshow, and be there for an hour to hear how the details of how it works. We've looked at doing a webinar on our real estate roadshows, again, so that we can find folks in the surrounding areas, and it doesn't have to be, Phoenix or China. It might be in Little Rock.
Yes.
That they have a touch point here. They have a relationship here. It may be an heir property that they're looking to protect and want to buy properties around their already existing property. So we're looking at using the technology to broaden the audience for our Real Estate Roadshow.
I'm shocked at what this has done for my show. I mean, on a much smaller level, the Facebook Live and the technology is almost vital. I mean, you almost have to have it these days because the way people want to get information. How often do you have a Real Estate Roadshow? Where are they typically at? Do you have to register? What's the process?
First of all, they're free. We make them available to anybody that wants to come out and find out more about how tax sales work. Number two, we've done them at MAR, at the Memphis Area Association of Realtors. We've done them at the Botanic Gardens. We've done them at various locations that we feel are convenient for the county at large. There is registration. I mean, for your audience that wants to find out more and follow us, again, they can go to shelbycountytrustee.com to our website, but we also have a social media presence. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on all the social media outlets, and we do a good job of updating and letting our audience know what are various events that are coming up. There is a registration process. I would encourage your audience to register early because the last one we did at MAR was standing room only. We had over 150 in the audience, and it was a great event. So one, that tells us we're headed in the right direction. But number two, it also tells me there's continuing interest in Memphis and Shelby County real estate, which is exciting for me.
This is one of the reasons why I was happy we were able to have you on to educate our audience on exactly what is a tax sale, the process that goes into it, and trying to figure out how to buy, what to buy. When is the next Real Estate Roadshow? When's the next one?
Yeah, actually, Dean, we don't have that on the books yet. Our next tax sale we think will be in early 2018. One of the things, and hopefully we have enough time to get this in.
Sure.
But
We got plenty.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done with Mayor Strickland is in the past we had two different collection entities. I and my office collected Shelby County property tax, and the city of Memphis collected Memphis City property tax. Well, Mayor Wharton and I entered into a partnership several years ago where we collect delinquent taxes for the city of Memphis. Now, having said that, property owners used to pay Shelby County taxes because we did tax sales aggressively, and the city did not. So city of Memphis taxes would go unpaid. So what that did is that created a portfolio of properties where the county taxes are paid, but the city taxes are not. So Mayor Strickland came to us and said, hey, look, we need revenue to help fund our budget. Would you look at doing what we call a city-only tax sale, whereby which we're going to sell properties where the Shelby County taxes are paid, but the Memphis City taxes are not paid. And we think, one, this is going to generate some revenue for the city of Memphis, but number two, also make a pool of properties or a portfolio of properties available to the investors that have not been made available in the past. So we think it's a win-win for both the city of Memphis and the community.
Do you find that see, to me that seems odd that somebody would pay the county and not the city. Do you find that most of those sales, they come back and pay those city taxes because they're paying the county?
They will eventually. It's
just a drag in their feet type thing. Is
right,
that really?
Right, because, nobody's, aggressively going after those properties. And I guess to go back to the blight conversation, what we found is a lot of times some of those properties are part of that blight conversation. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I tell you, the Real Estate Roadshow sounds like something that my listeners would be interested in, because I know a few weeks ago we had Dan Butler on. We were talking about tax sales and the benefits of them, and a lot of my questions following that were, can you talk about that more? Can you give us some more information? So, I mean, I'm excited to have you on and talking all about the Real Estate Roadshow, how to educate yourself. Guys, if you've got more interest in this, ShelbyCountyTrustee.com, you can find, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can find the registration on that website to register for the next Real Estate Roadshow. Do you know when you guys will announce that? Is that something coming up?
Yeah, it'll be later this year. And what I was saying about the city-only tax sales is we'll do that tax sale in probably January to February of next year. And so our Real Estate Roadshow is usually a couple of weeks in advance of the tax sale. Again, to try to answer any last-minute questions. But, yes, whether it's our social media or our website, we'll announce the date and get the word out. And, again, going back to Wendy Greenlaw and the folks at Chandler, they help us spread the word as well.
Spread the word, okay. Yeah. Last thing I want to get to before we go, I've got David Lenoir, Shelby County Trustee, here in the studio with me this morning. A common theme of community outreach leaders regarding real estate in their areas are the boarded-up homes. We talked about blight. What we're doing to try to help that. What are some of the community programs that your office is involved in, areas or even specific development programs? Is there any of those you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of paint with broad strokes, I mean, a couple of years ago, we began to look at and evaluate what we call tipping point neighborhoods. Various studies, whether they came out of Detroit or came out of Cleveland, that got hit much harder with this blight and foreclosure and shadow inventory than Memphis did. A lot of studies came out in terms of where do you spend your money. I mean, the reality is money is a limited resource, whether it's your money or government money, and we have to prioritize where we're going to spend it and hopefully get the best bang for our buck. So a couple of years ago, we started to identify tipping point neighborhoods. Take Medical District. I mean, recently there's been a lot of discussion about, significant investment with St. Jude and Le Bonheur, all down in that medical district. Well, there's certain pockets just to the north of Poplar that would be considered blight, and some challenged neighborhoods that are adjoin Uptown. So what we did is we, in this tipping point neighborhood, we've tried to put tax sale properties that are in that tipping point area in a hope to encourage investors to partner with this broader investment from the medical community so that we can begin to revitalize that particular community. We've identified about 5 of the tipping point neighborhoods. Medical District's one. The Binghamton community's another. There's a pocket over there that's near the fairgrounds and Central Gardens area. So that's one of the things that we've done. As far as initiatives, Dean, the THDA programs are great. I mean, we worked with THDA and developed, there's some hardest hit money that's available for nonprofits that want to take ownership of property that needs to be knocked down. It's a $25,000 forgivable loan. So THDA fronts the money, the nonprofit knocks the home down with the agreement to green space the property within 3 years. And then finally, the THDA, the $15,000 down payment assistance in certain zip codes within Shelby County, I think is another program that's designed to stimulate investment in certain areas of our community.
I want to tell you that I've been educated today. I felt like I've learned a good bit about our tax sales and land bank sales. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on. We have got, this is an investment real estate show for the most part, so most of my listeners are investors. So guys, if you've got any questions today, feel free to call me. You can call the Shelby County Trustee's office at 901-222-0200. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, ShelbyCountyTrustee.com is the website you can go to check out more information about the Real Estate Roadshow, when the next one will be. Sounds like it's going to be a few months away, but it's something to pay attention to. I've committed to my investors and to my listeners to provide great content, great opportunities on how you can buy properties, why you buy here in Memphis. So I appreciate you coming on, David, and having taken out the time to be here today.
Yeah, glad to. Thanks, Dean. It's an honor to serve our community, and we hopefully you hear through our theme that we welcome the feedback in terms of how we can improve what we're doing.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay,
Thank
guys,
you.
we talked about today. It's something that's extremely important. So I'm happy that we were able to get that out there and figure and get some more information to you regarding tax sales, land bank sales. If you listened to the beginning of the show, guys, you heard me give out our listing of the week, 8979 Dewberry Lane. That's in Cordova. It's got 5 bedrooms, 3 full baths. We're listing this one at $219,900. It's been completely renovated. And then I gave you what I like to call free money, which is our listings of our investments of the week. David mentioned them during the show, too. It is 3077 Douglas and 2451 Douglas Avenue over in the Orange Mound area, 38111. Both 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. You can get both of these for about $45,000. So give me a call when you get a chance, 901-619-6170 if you've got any questions about that.
To the Variety Hour, where local leaders talk Memphis.
Listen to you move your mouth. I bet you come from way down south. Now don't tell me, let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good. Talk Memphis, high on the bluff. I swear I can't get enough. Listening to you talk that stuff. Talk Memphis, oh yeah. Talk Memphis.
This is the Memphis Real Estate Hour with your host, Dean Harris, on KWAM. And now, here's your host, Dean Harris.
All right, welcome to the Memphis Real Estate Hour. I am your host, Dean Harris. I'm with CrestCore Realty over on Summer Avenue. I want to thank you.